Welcome back, everyone. You're watching We Heart Therapy, the special series EFT Talk. I'm your host, Dr. Anabelle Bugatti, licensed marriage and family therapist and certified EFT supervisor and therapist here in fabulous Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm very excited to welcome to our show today. We have Dr. Giulia Altera. She is one of our EFT trainers in Italy, and she's also helping to bring EFT to Brazil. She trains therapists both in Italian and in Portuguese. So amazing that she's trilingual and that she's here today to talk to us about pursuer softening. And so welcome, Giulia. Thank you so much for joining us all the way from Italy.
Thank you so much for having invited me. It's a great pleasure to be here. It's a great way to speak about EFT. I really enjoyed your videos since my early becoming a young EFT therapist. So it's really great what you are doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you. That's so wonderful. And it's just such an honor to have you here today. And so for those who are joining us that maybe aren't super familiar with EFT or some of the language, maybe they're new to EFT, what do we mean when we use terms like pursuer and withdrawer?
Mm-hmm. This is really an important question because when we speak about pursuer and withdrawer, we are speaking about position in the cycle. We need, and it's something that it's important for an EFT therapist to know, to identify this position that the two partners have in the cycle into this dance, to be able to tune in into their longing and needs and fear and understand the move that they do into this dance. And the pursuer, we identify the partner in the position of the pursuer as the partner which fear more the abandonment and who takes the more critical stance sometimes when they are in separation distress, for example. And we can recognize them sometimes through phrases that they can say, like, you are not always with me, I'm not important to you, you are not doing what you are supposed to do, but not also with these, because sometimes it can be challenging. Understand the pursuer only for the behavior, for example, because sometimes we can have very quiet pursuer. So to me, something that was helpful was imagine like a continuum and see the person which are more longing and needed and trying to get the connection. They really want the connection. And the withdrawer is the partner which is more in an avoidant stance. Usually they freeze, they blocked, and basically because they fear rejection, they fear failure. This means that they doesn't want connection, no, but they prefer protect their self and their relationship to go back to a calm state, and then finally connect with the partner.
Yeah. So all this is so helpful, Giulia. Thank you. And let me see if I can clarify, and you tell me if I'm getting everything that you just said correctly. So kind of pursuer withdrawers are positions in the cycle, and they're really the way that a partner might react to distress or disconnection. And the pursuer tends to be somebody whose body, whose nervous system organizes them to go towards connection first, before, like, they need to make sure the relationship is okay before they can self-regulate, right? Whereas a withdrawer, you know, who also craves connection, but their body, sort of their nervous system, more drives them to move away and go into self-protection mode and get themselves on solid footing before they can make sure the relationship is good. So yes, at the end, they both want connection, but they just have two different, the order is different.
Exactly. And that's that's why they are having these different moves into the cycle.
And they miss each other because they're in different orders.
Exactly. And we seeing this dance and this through between this position, we can imagine a journey to unsafe attachment and safe attachment, and that's why we are going later into the pursuer softening. So,
and it's so important just to get a foundation of who pursuers are and what they do, so that we understand what pursuer softening is, which we're gonna get to. But let's continue to build this foundation a little bit. So, you know, you talked about some behaviors associated with pursuers, and it seems kind of what you said, Giulia, is that, you know, you're really looking for, in a pursuer, you're going to notice somebody who's constantly anxious, usually anxious about the relationship, moving towards relationship and connection priority. Their distress really focuses around not having that connection or having it go away from them. And they sort of like can get stuck there or really hyper-focused there. And they don't know how to feel safe if the relationship is not okay.
Yeah, exactly. And they are, as you said, they are more anxious. You can see and feel this anxiety to be connected to their partner. And also you can feel the difference of energy compared to the withdrawal.
Like a pursuer might like blow up your phone if they sense a fight. They're going to text. Where a withdrawer might like go silent for you know, a couple hours or a couple days sometimes.
Exactly, and these happen in session also, and that's why the therapist should really tune into these two kind of energy, and really knowing and have a felt sense of this, what does it means, what this energy means, what this anxiety means for the pursuer. And for the pursuer is something, it's a way to survive, it's a way to fight for the couple, to fight for the relationship, it's a way to work and do something to try to find the partner. So the intention is really good, but for the withdrawer, this is not good. This is dangerous. It's really dangerous, because we are going to fight again and again and again.
Withdrawers don't seem to like that strong fight energy. They like to avoid the conflict, whereas a pursuer will say, I'd rather fight than not be connected. And if I have to fight through some weeds to get connected, that's what I'm going to do.
Exactly.
Yeah. And it's so important. I like what you said. It's so important to be able to understand what it is that we see in front of us, because it helps us organize and make sense of these moves that each couple is doing, their strategy, their own way of trying to cope with disconnection and fight for connection, and how those differences create those misses where they miss each other, which then creates more disconnection. And organizing it and making sense of it helps the couple to start to understand their own moves and make sense of it. And a lot of times that can bring a lot of the tension down. It's like, finally some sense to this pattern that we get stuck in.
Yeah, you used an important word. You said to organize, and that's really we use this energy, the power of emotion in stage one to organize the pattern between them, and to help them, as you said, to own their own moves, but also really understand the moves of the partner, because it's not, sometimes they can understand themselves after that we help them to organize, but or understand and accept the moves of the other, the moves that the other does, and that are the ones that are hurting, are really painful. This is really difficult, and this is the focus and the first event of change of the de-escalation stage one.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's maybe talk about what we mean when we say pursuer softening, and maybe talk about why this comes in stage 2 versus stage 1. Because oftentimes what I hear therapists who come to me for supervision or consultation will say, well, if the pursuer would be soft, then they wouldn't, then the withdrawer would engage, and then they could not be in the cycle. But, it's a lot deeper than that, and that's a reason why we don't do that part of their dance until later. So can you help understand what the difference is between pursuer softening and the work we do with the pursuer in stage 1?
Yes, of course. Even because the pursuer softening is is the third change event, which is probably the most important. Without that, we cannot really have a big shift into the relationship. So in stage 1, we help the pursuer to understand and to organize what is inside him, behind the anger, behind their pursuing stance, and we help the partner also to see this. And it's something that we do through a lot of validation, matching the energy and the affect, staying with the pursuer. Don't try to take the pursuer in another place. As the same we do with the withdrawer. We don't try to change the withdrawer into a pursuer, but we help them to understand their moves and what there is inside them. And in the second stage, we try to we really build a new cycle, a positive cycle. So we are going much more deeper. And about what your supervisor says, and many of therapists says, also I at the beginning, but we just want to connect them. And but no, because also in stage 1, sometimes we can see some softening with the pursuer. We can see through the de-escalation that they understand, they start to understand their moves and moves.
De-escalation in and of itself is sort of a softening process, in that it sort of takes the energy out of the escalation. But like what you're saying is stage 1 is really about organizing the moves between these couples, helping them make sense as to the moves that they make, how that impacts each other, how they miss each other, and the good attachment intentions behind their strategies, so that we can also help build some more flexibility, empathy for each other, opening up the doors. But then you know, in stage 2, you know, just so stage 1, we've helped couples work through de-escalation, but the absence of conflict or the minimal conflict doesn't always mean the presence of connection. So when you say we're going deeper in stage 2, this is where we're helping both the withdrawer and the pursuer to start interacting with their own needs, their voice, advocating for their desires and what's important to them. And, you know, withdrawer, we help, they're the ones who are used to kind of minimizing or dismissing their voice, whereas the pursuer is used to having a voice. But when we say pursuer softening, it's not because we're not, you know, it's not about the de-escalation. It's now we want them to be able to take that sharp edge, maybe out of their vulnerable ask, right? Because when they get caught in the cycle, or when they're used to a withdrawer not showing up for them, then when they ask for their needs, it can be in a very sharp and pokey kind of way and not super vulnerable, like I need you. It might sound more like, you're never there for me, or how come you're too busy on your phone versus hanging out with me right now, right?
Yes.
So why does withdrawer re-engagement have to happen before we soften the pursuer?
Because basically, if we start with the pursuer, the withdrawer is not still on the dance floor, as Sue Johnson said. So we need to work with the withdrawer first, so he can be present to take and own the vulnerability of the pursuer. Because, and also because the withdrawer is triggered by the vulnerability of the pursuer, usually. So if we help the pursuer to risk again one more time and show the deepest fear and needs, this could trigger a lot the withdrawer, and he can disappear again, and the pursuer will fall again one more time. So we really need to help the withdrawer to be present, to share his own vulnerability and ask precisely what he needs to the pursuer in an engaged way. He needs to be engaged in the relationship and affirm her needs. He can have a voice in a safe way.
Because what you're saying is so important, Giulia. You're really like painting this picture. You know, pursuers tend to be very engaged in their relationships, sometimes really, really engaged. And they're the ones who will be reading the books and asking for the podcasts, and, you know, they will do everything they can above and beyond. Yes, above and beyond for their relationships. And they tend to find their withdrawing partner as a mystery on the inside. And that mysteriousness, while it seems alluring when they're first like dating in the honeymoon phase, eventually it feels less of this alluring mystery and more of a closed door, like a place that I can't enter. And I'm a pursuer. That's my position. And, you know, it's that absence of that emotional inner world that's being shared that can feel so threatening for the pursuer. And so what you're saying, Giulia, is that it's really essential to get the withdrawer engaged, right? I like how you said, we're not necessarily turning the withdrawer into a pursuer, but we're helping them at least to be present and to say, hey, I have a voice, I have thoughts and opinions, and I have needs to feel loved and respected and supported or comforted. And I'm in this relationship because I want to get those met from you. And now I'm going to start at least sharing those with you, even if I don't with anybody else. So you're saying we really need to have that happen first. And sort of the metaphor I use for this place, and you tell me if you think this is funny, I always imagine a flying trapeze with, you have the two trapeze artists, but, you know, the whole relationship, the pursuer is the one always on the trapeze bar, you know, flying around, doing whatever. And they feel that absence, that emotional absence of their partner's engagement. And so pursuer softening is where we're getting the pursuer to start vulnerably reaching and asking for their needs. But you're saying, if we have them, like they're swinging, they're taking a risk. To me, risk, I just imagine jumping off into something that feels really scary. And, you know, it's like, if this is a two-person act and I'm a pursuer who's supposed to take that leap off my trapeze bar, I got to know my partner is going to be on that bar and they're going to have their arms out to catch me. And so if that withdrawer can't even interact with their own emotions, and they can't hold space for the pursuer's emotions, right? So anytime the pursuer starts to share, like in stage 1, the withdrawer might go away. Now you're just helping them to stay present. So then the pursuer feels a lot more safe, and then they can start asking for those things without fear that they're going to get abandoned. So you need to make sure that that withdrawer can not only tolerate their own emotional space, but that of their partners, where we already know the pursuer can do that.
Yeah, and that is the image that you use. It's really beautiful and really gave the sense of the fear that the pursuer, but also the withdrawer first, both of them can feel through this reaching part, because the steps that we are going to make in stage 1 with both of them are the same, even if there are different steps, but the reaching and asking for the needs, it's the same. So this image, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you. And my metaphor for the withdrawer, I like what you said. It's the same for withdrawers, that they also need to feel safe to be present. And for them, I kind of think of I don't know if you guys have this in Italy, but we have this arcade game called Whack-A-Mole. And it's like these little prairie dogs, or I guess they're moles, which is a little rodent creature in America. They pop their head out and you take a hammer, and you bop them down. So it's like, that's often when withdrawers are with a critical pursuer. It feels like that. As soon as I pop my head out, I'm going to get whacked. And that's why it's so hard. So that's why de-escalation is so imperative to come before the softening. And the softening, again, is just more about deeper vulnerability. It's not about de-escalation. De-escalation helps bring that energy down so that the withdrawer stops feeling like I'm going to get whacked every time I pop my head out. And then it's safer for me to come out and like, oh, actually I'm a person and I have needs and thoughts and feelings in this relationship. And I'm going to start sharing my humanity with my partner.
Yeah. Yes. Even sometimes they can have a bit of the hunger. Because until we will not have the pursuer softening event, the pursuer will pop up with some critical demands, or can pop up with the cycle, because there is a big fear, because the risk of the trapeze. Actually, they did it several times, probably in their past too, and it's a common experience for a pursuer. They really fall a lot of time, and a part of them know that probably nobody will pick them, nobody will choose them, nobody will take them. Even when they are showing their best part, like I'm doing everything for this relationship. Imagine if I share my fear, and if I'm going to take a risk.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, what you're kind of saying is that the way a withdrawer experiences rejection, because both partners worry about rejection and abandonment, but a withdrawer, they feel it more from criticism. That's the way that they get whacked. Whereas a pursuer isn't so afraid of criticism. The way that a pursuer gets whacked is by having their partner not show up. And both positions sort of make sense. I mean, if your experiences in life told you if you show up, you're going to get punched in the face, you wouldn't show up. Like, who in their right mind would show up for that, right? So it makes sense that your experience have taught you to survive. You need to go away and get safe, versus a pursuer who's like, my worst fear is showing up and having no one be there for me, having them just leave or not talk, not open up, and reject me that way. So that's their greatest fear. And they can like white knuckle it and grab on with every fiber. Like, no, I'm not letting you go. I'm not letting you leave. I'm not letting you abandon me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So,
And you said something too that was so important. You said that even still in stage 2, pursuers can sort of show up with a critical edge. And I think sometimes we see that when they start asking for vulnerability, or their withdrawing partner starts to engage, and they're like, well, it would be really nice if you would do this at home. You know, like, there it is again.
Exactly. And that, I think that this is also important to remember for therapists, because sometimes in supervision, it happens some 2-3 days ago that in a supervision, the therapist came and said, we were in stage 2, but the cycle happens again. And I said, yeah, but look at the difference. Look at what happened. Yes, it looks like, and it is actually some criticism, but it's much more different from the beginning. So the therapist, I think that this is something that we can remember, to don't panic in session, and to say, okay, this is normal, this can happen, let me tune again with the emotion and with what this person is feeling.
Yeah. It's so important as you say that, panicking in session. And I'm thinking of all the withdrawer therapists who have a really strong pursuer show up in session and can feel themselves start to withdraw around that energy. And I think what can be helpful is just to understand is that the pursuer is oriented to fight, to approach, to do anything they can to stop abandonment from happening. And even if they have to use negative things, right? If their partner's walking away and they're, you know, rather than say nothing and just let it go, like, I'm going to let my partner retreat, they'll come back later. Like, that might be in a secure relationship, but for an anxious pursuer, they're like, nope, you're not going away from me. Even if I have to insult you, you're such a this or you're such a that, you know, because if you turn around and you engage with me, then we're still connected, at least, even though we might be fighting. For a pursuer, fighting is still a form of connection.
Exactly. Fighting is better than silence, and it's better than abandonment. Yeah.
So how could a therapist who's maybe a withdrawer show up for a pursuing client in session?
How a withdrawal therapist?
Yeah, like, what could they do if they have a pursuer show up in session and they're sort of feeling that energy? What could they do to show up for that client? And it would sort of be a model also for the withdrawing partner.
Yes. And also, I think for the pursuer, because actually sometimes we see that also who is a pursuer in their life, it has difficulties in matching the energy of the pursuer and understanding the pursuer. Because I think that George Kohler said in a core skill, at the end, everyone loves the withdrawer at the end. So doesn't matter if the pursuer is putting so much energy. So
that poor pursuer.
Yeah, exactly. And it's terrible. It's terrible because, but I'm going
So
there
because
later.
pursuers are people too.
Yeah,
They need some love, and people seem to get like really freaked out by pursuers.
exactly.
And you know, being a pursuer myself, I'm just like, we're not all that scary. We're not trying to scare anybody. We just don't want to be abandoned or rejected.
Exactly. So what something that can happen, and I'm sorry, that can help, and that helped me a lot. It's really, even before session, just stop and try to remember and to picture into myself, the image of that woman or that man, and how is scared and how is unfair and how is terrible to be in a place where inside you have like monsters. I mean, you feel like you are a monster sometimes for your partner, and you are alone, and it doesn't matter how much you work hard, but at the end of the day, when you try to get some closeness, some love, probably you will be rejected or you will be described as too needy.
I
So
hate that word, needy.
exactly.
It pathologizes something we're wired
Exactly.
for.
Exactly. I think that you said in a recent video, if I remember well, that actually in our culture we have so many words for describe in a bad way the needs, the healthy needs of connection. And also in the metaphor, when we imagine the metaphor for the withdrawer, every metaphor, the pursuer is always in a place like I'm using a hammer,
Yeah,
I'm using
like I'm a
bombs.
perpetrator or something.
Exactly, exactly. So even if we know that it's not pathologic, but
Yeah.
somehow this is something that is inside, and this is inside also of the inside of the pursuer, because usually the critic can go out. It's something that we, because I'm a pursuer too, we use with ourselves. So after the explosion, we stayed there and we said, oh, I did it again. I said that I will not scream, will not said that, and I did it again. And yes, he stayed there engaged a bit, but now I'm alone again. So I think that a therapist can really work on trying to tune into this image of loneliness and sadness and
Their dilemma.
yes,
Because the pursuer's biggest fear is their partner's not going to be able to see or understand them, that their partner's never going to show up for them and meet their needs or want to meet their needs. And I think their fear in therapy is that the therapist is going to see them as crazy or drama or overly emotional, irrational, erratic, all these ugly words, and that they're going to sort of take the withdrawer's side and they're going to be left out in the cold, still not being understood, still being misunderstood, right? Because they don't want to be seen as a perpetrator or a monster or any of those things, right? Because that's not who pursuers are on the inside. They're just terrified of being abandoned, and their body mobilizes into danger. And we need pursuers, right? Because pursuers are the ones that'll, like, when a tough thing happens, they'll step up and say, okay, I'm willing, I'll do it, right?
Yeah.
Pursuers get stuff done.
Exactly. But, which is, I think, really important. You mentioned 2 times, like, craziness, no? They are looks like crazy. But it's something that pursuer were oh, my English doesn't help me
You're
now.
fine.
They are bring to that place of craziness, because if you are alone, if you are sad, if you feel stuck, doesn't matter. If you stay calm, nothing change. If you scream, nothing change. You are frustrated, and you stay alone in your mind with all these voices, with
Yeah.
something, with someone beside you, and he's not there or she's not there. So you just are in your mind. This is a good recipe for craziness at some point,
Yeah.
because after year and year and year of this, it's normal. And so the anxious part, which came up, and the fight is healthy, is a healthy response to don't be stuck in that place of suffer.
Yeah, I like what you're saying is, it's like if one of the best things a therapist can do is just show up for that pursuer, go into their fire and say, like, I get that you just want to be seen as somebody who loves, who wants to be heard, who wants to be reasonable. Your strategies may not be effective, but you're not a monster. And most pursuers, I love what you said, is most pursuers don't start out just like screaming at their partner. They get there eventually over time, and they also sort of feel like nothing works, right? It's like, well, I'll try the nice approach. Pursuers will often say, I've tried everything, and no matter what I do, I just can't get my partner to respond. And so they get super frustrated, and then they get angry. And when they go into angry mode, their body again compels them to that approach mode, to that pursue, that fight mode. And that's what they do to survive, right? It's like, maybe if I rattle the cage, the person inside will wake up and yeah, okay, please stop rattling the cage. But it doesn't always work, but
exactly.
So they're really like wanting the therapist to come into their world and to see them as an attachment being who just desperately wants to be loved and attended to, and that they're working hard, and that they're not trying to be mean or crazy or any of those things, but that there is something real happening in their world that's very frustrating and very painful.
Yes, yes. And touching the pain, we start to move from the stage 1 through the stage 2, because when we get near the stage 2, the pursuer, as we saw, he will start to slow a bit down, can pop up, but not with that much strength and power and energy. And in stage 2, into the blame, when we arrived at the blamer softening, we really need to enter into that pain, and we need to help them to open up and watch and see the image of the monster sometimes that they picture inside, and share with the partner. And this is that's why the pursuer softening event is one of the most challenging also for the therapist, and is the ones with the more impasse that can have blocks. It's difficult. It's difficult.
Yeah, you're
enter in the fear, in the terror, in the.
That's big, and that comes down. So in stage 2, when you're in pursuer softening, right? So we're working in steps 5, 6, and 7. And, this is working with their inner self. So the part of me, how I see myself, which has been shaped by the fact that nobody's ever really shown up for me, or I've been abandoned or rejected a lot. So a lot of pursuers have developed a negative self-image as a result of that. And that can make it hard for them to trust that someone else will show up for them. You'll often hear, like, once the withdrawing partner starts to engage and share their inner world, they're like, is this a trick? I don't know how to trust that. You're just placating me because I've never heard it before. It's so strange. Like, I like it, but I don't know how to trust that it's real, right? And sometimes, you know, I love how you talked about the blocks, and some of their blocks come up as just, you know, I've had so many, you know, like pursuers have had so many experiences of being abandoned that a lot of them have developed this idea that they're not lovable, right? That people don't like them. If they really knew them, they wouldn't like them. And so even when people do try to show love and acceptance, they don't know how to believe it. They don't know how to trust it. So they often have a little bit of trauma right there and start rejecting the very thing that they're craving. Because they just don't know how to believe that it's for them, that they're worthy of that.
Precisely. This is when you said they start to feel unlovable. This is something that really show up a lot when we go into the pursuer softening, and as you mentioned, they experienced these several times. They came from an anxious attachment style, so they experience really probably usually into their family also. And so what we are asking them to do, it's really the most scary thing probably that they are going, that they can do.
And speaking from personal experience, you know, so EFT has just been so wonderful for helping me to get to know myself. I mean, I've done therapy before, but EFT just has a way of helping you uncover corners you didn't know hadn't been cleared out. And so, you know, in my EFT journey, you know, really learning about my own strategies and styles and stuff, you know, I came from an anxious pursuer, and you know, one of the things that you'll see with anxious pursuers is even when they repair, you know, that they're good at owning their mistakes. They're willing to do that oftentimes. But even when they repair, they tend to not trust that the repair was good enough, because they probably had, you know, someone who told, you know, they apologized and that person said, yes, everything is fine. But then that person just started avoiding or going away. And so abandonment. So, you know, even when they repair, they might start anxiously pursuing their partner around that repair. Like, are things really good? Are things really good? To the point where they sort of like over repair, and then they end up sort of driving the other person bonkers. It's like, enough. Why don't you just trust it? Why don't you believe it?
Yes. So often we need to work also around the grief of the pursuer for all the years that he or she felt deprived. So there is also, this could be really a big a block to this. So we need to work also on the grief of this.
The past pains of people not showing up for them.
Yeah, exactly. And also this is when they can really reach and ask, and the withdrawer also reach back and hold this, they start to experience a new positive cycle. It's a really big shift into this dynamic. So, and it's something virtuous, if the word exists in English, but so they really start and learn how to ask, because yes, some people need to be reassured, not just one time, and it's normal, it's healthy, because sometimes the pain was so big that they need more than once. And the big shift is that the withdrawal now, he's he can see this, and he want, and he feel important, and he feel the power to hold this vulnerability, this pain, and he can take care, and he feel like, oh, she's not demanding. She really needs me. She needs my help. She needs my soothing, my care, my comfort. So now I don't feel a failure. I feel important.
Yeah.
I want to feel that way more and more and more. And so it's hard to be a positive, really positive.
Yeah. I like how you say that. So it's sort of, even though we'll do withdrawal re-engagement first, you're sort of just getting them up to a certain level to where you can, then you're going to kind of start, you might do both side by side. You might do, you know, some sessions just pursuer, really focusing on the withdrawal, and you might have both. And even as you do pursuer softening, it's also going to help continue to engage the withdrawer, because like you said, you know, helping the withdrawer to see themselves as capable at loving their partner, at showing up for them, at providing for their needs, which is something that they oftentimes have not felt because their partner was so critical, right? So as they see themselves more capable, they're more likely to show up because they're experiencing success. And the more they show up, the safer the pursuer is going to feel to ask vulnerably, to say, hey, like, I'm really scared, you know, or I'm worried about this. Could you just reassure me? Versus like, why did you do that? Or, you know, why don't you do this? You know, instead of poking or even asking with that little bit of a jab at the end of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There is, there is a part, a step into the pursuer softening in which we really help the withdrawer to remain engaged. Mm-hmm. And we have to pay the attention to help him or her stay engaged, but without going into just positive cycle, and just kind of have a good bond now before the pursuer is really showing up. So it's really, as you said, like working with both of them at some point, like stay engaged, don't be scared, tune into that, but don't hold yet. Like wait that the pursuer share.
And the pursuer will need repeated visits, repeated experiences of asking for their needs, asking for support and reassurance or love and comfort, and having that withdrawer show up for them to really fully start to trust, right? Because and trust isn't destroyed just by lies. It's not lies that often destroys. I mean, that's definitely one of the easiest ways to destroy trust, but a lot of times people don't have trust when they can't rely on people. So it's trust in a different way. And so, you know, when they can start to see their partner as dependable, that when I know that I reach for you, you're going to be there for me, they're going to start to feel more secure. And that security is going to lead to less anxiety, hence the softening.
Exactly. Knowing that the other will be there. And maybe sometimes he will not be there.
But it's not going to like shake the whole foundation.
Yeah. Exactly. It will be
because they know they're going to be able to come back to that repair. So there's still a level of dependability there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this is amazing, Giulia. You're so fantastic, and I love that you are a fellow pursuer and that you know so much about pursuers. This is wonderful. Now, so you're in Italy, and you also are bringing EFT to Brazil. So what are your websites? How can people find you?
Okay, people can find me on two websites. I had the website of the Italian community with my colleague Andrea, the other trainer of Italy, which is www.eftitaliacommunity.com. And I have the website of the center, which is www.EFT trattino, the line
dash.
sì, yes, norditalia.com. Maybe
Right.
I will write. And this website, it's going to be translated in Portuguese.
Great.
And also my email, giulia.altera, chiocciola, hotmail.com.
At where?
Yeah. Hotmail.com.
Oh, yeah. Hotmail. That's one that's been around for a long time. I still have a Hotmail account out there.
Yes, it's about 15 years or something like that.
And I'm going to put, so in the YouTube video, so this is also a podcast, guys. So if you're on iTunes or Podbean or any of those, you can also pick up We Heart Therapy on there. But if you're on YouTube, I'm going to put Giulia's web addresses in the description for the video, as well as her email address. So if you're looking for those resources, you want to get in touch with Giulia, then you can go through YouTube and link those in the video and directly contact her. And so some of the folks that are speak Portuguese, they can just get in touch with you, and you can connect them with resources for learning EFT in their area.
Of course.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for being on our show today, and just for, contributing this part about pursuers. It's so amazing to have you all the way from Italy.
Thank you. Thank you. It was really a great pleasure and emotion also. So
that's wonderful. And thank you so much to our viewers. Without you, we wouldn't have a channel. So thank you for continuing to watch, and make sure that you hit subscribe, because more videos are on the way.